A wise woman understands that not everything she knows, feels, or experiences needs to be placed in someone else's hands. In relationships, openness is important, but so are boundaries. There are certain things that should be shared with care, at the right time, and with the right person. Wisdom is not about becoming secretive or distant. It is about understanding the difference between honesty and oversharing, between vulnerability and surrendering your power. When you learn what deserves to remain private, you begin to protect your peace, your dignity, and the mystery that allows a healthy relationship to breathe. In this message, we will explore 6 principles surrounding 2 important things a wise woman should be careful about telling a man, and how keeping healthy boundaries can transform the way you carry yourself. A wise woman understands that her past is a chapter of her life, not her entire identity. She does not feel pressured to sit across from someone and reveal every mistake, every relationship, every disappointment, or every painful experience just to prove that she is honest. There is a difference between being open and exposing everything. Wisdom is knowing where that line exists. Your past may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you. You are allowed to acknowledge where you came from without allowing someone else to use your history as a measuring stick for your worth. Some experiences are lessons that you carry quietly. They changed you, strengthened you, and taught you what you will and will not accept in the future. They do not need to become stories that you repeatedly explain. When someone genuinely cares about you, they will be interested in the woman you are becoming, not simply the person you used to be. Of course, important truths should never be hidden when they directly affect a relationship. Honesty creates trust, but honesty does not require unnecessary details that serve no healthy purpose. Sometimes, the more you explain, the more you give another person opportunities to misunderstand you. You may find yourself defending decisions you made years ago, explaining why you behaved a certain way, or trying to convince someone that you have changed. But real growth does not always need an explanation. It becomes visible through your behavior. Let your character speak louder than your history. You do not need to say, "I have changed," every day when your actions already demonstrate it. You do not need to prove that you are wiser when your choices show greater wisdom. You do not need to constantly reopen old wounds simply because someone wants to know everything. There are parts of your story that can remain yours, not because you are hiding, not because you are afraid, but because you understand that privacy is part of self-respect. Your past deserves compassion, not constant exposure. Take the lessons, release the shame, and allow yourself to move forward. The strongest version of you is not the woman who explains every chapter. She is the woman who has learned from those chapters and now chooses to write the next ones with intention. A wise woman understands that insecurity is something to work through, not something to constantly place in another person's hands. Everyone has moments of doubt. Everyone has parts of themselves they wish were different. Feeling insecure does not make you weak, but repeatedly seeking someone else's reassurance to feel valuable can slowly take away your inner strength. There is a difference between healthy vulnerability and emotional dependence. Sharing your feelings with someone you trust can create intimacy. But when you constantly say, "Am I good enough? Do you still love me? Are you going to leave me?" or compare yourself to every other woman, you may begin making another person responsible for your confidence. A wise woman learns to reassure herself first. She understands that another person can appreciate her beauty, support her dreams, and remind her of her strengths, but they cannot permanently heal an insecurity that she refuses to confront within herself. External validation feels good, but it is temporary. Inner confidence is something you build through self-respect, discipline, acceptance, and personal growth. You do not need to tell someone every fear that lives inside your mind. Some fears need reflection before they need conversation. When insecurity appears, pause and ask yourself where it is coming from. Is it based on something that is actually happening, or is an old wound creating a story in your mind? Learn to separate facts from fears. If someone is treating you with respect, do not punish the present relationship for something that happened in the past. If someone consistently shows you that they care, allow their actions to speak instead of demanding constant proof. And remember, being confident does not mean believing you are perfect. It means knowing that your imperfections do not cancel your worth. You can be beautiful without needing everyone to notice. You can be intelligent without needing constant praise. You can be loved without constantly asking for confirmation. You can be alone without believing you have been rejected. The goal is not to hide every vulnerability. The goal is to become strong enough to share vulnerability from a place of self-awareness rather than fear. When you know your worth internally, you stop begging someone else to convince you that you deserve love. You become calmer, more grounded, and more selective about who receives access to your deepest emotions. And that kind of confidence does not need to announce itself. It can be felt in the way you speak, choose, and carry yourself. A wise woman understands that privacy is not the same thing as secrecy. Secrecy is often about deliberately hiding something that another person has a genuine right to know. Privacy is different. Privacy means understanding that you are still an individual, even when you are in a relationship. You can love someone deeply and still have thoughts, dreams, experiences, friendships, and personal moments that belong to you. You do not have to explain every detail of your life simply because someone asks. You do not need to report every conversation you have, every plan you make, or every thought that crosses your mind. A healthy relationship is not built on constant monitoring. It is built on trust, respect, and the freedom for two individuals to remain whole while choosing to share their lives. Sometimes people feel guilty for wanting privacy because they believe that love means complete access. But love should never require you to surrender your entire identity. You are allowed to take time alone. You are allowed to have personal goals. You are allowed to maintain friendships and interests outside the relationship. You are allowed to think before responding, instead of immediately explaining every emotion. A wise woman also understands that not every plan needs to be announced before it becomes reality. Sometimes you need quiet space to develop an idea, heal from an experience, or decide what direction you want to take. Constantly sharing unfinished plans can invite unnecessary opinions, doubts, or pressure. This does not mean becoming distant or emotionally unavailable. It means becoming intentional. Share what strengthens the relationship. Communicate what genuinely needs to be communicated, but do not confuse transparency with total exposure. The right person will not demand access to every corner of your mind to prove that you care. They will understand that trust means allowing another person to breathe. When you maintain healthy privacy, you also maintain a relationship with yourself. You continue discovering who you are beyond your role as a partner. You remember your goals, your values, and your individuality. And this creates a healthier kind of love. You are not together because you cannot exist separately. You are together because you choose each other while still being complete individuals. That is the difference between attachment and healthy connection. A wise woman does not build walls around herself, but she does build boundaries. She knows what belongs in the relationship, what belongs in a private conversation with herself, and what simply does not need to be explained at all. Privacy is not rejection. Privacy is not dishonesty. Sometimes, privacy is simply self-respect. A wise woman understands that vulnerability should come from trust, not fear. Sharing your pain with someone can create a deeper emotional connection, but your pain should never become a tool for keeping someone in your life. You should never feel that you have to reveal your deepest wounds just to make another person feel responsible for you. There is a powerful difference between saying, "I trust you enough to share this part of my story," and saying, "I am telling you this because I need you to stay." The first comes from emotional maturity. The second comes from fear of abandonment. A wise woman does not use her suffering to create emotional debt. She does not remind someone of everything she has shared whenever they disagree. She does not say, "After everything I told you, how could you do this?" She does not believe that revealing her most painful experiences means another person is now obligated to remain with her forever. Love cannot be built on guilt. If someone chooses to stay, let them stay because they genuinely value you, respect you, and want to build something with you. Do not try to hold someone through sympathy, fear, or emotional pressure. If a relationship requires you to constantly prove how much you have suffered in order to receive love, something is already unhealthy. This does not mean you should hide your emotions. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to admit that something hurt you. You are allowed to say that you are afraid, disappointed, or overwhelmed. Emotional strength does not mean pretending that nothing affects you. Real strength means understanding your emotions without allowing them to control your decisions. Share your vulnerability with people who have demonstrated that they can handle it with care. Trust should be earned over time. You do not have to reveal everything during the first moments of connection. Let someone's consistency show you whether they deserve deeper access to your heart. And if someone eventually leaves, remember that your vulnerability was not wasted. You were brave enough to be genuine. Their decision does not make your openness a mistake. A wise woman does not regret having a heart. She simply becomes more selective about who receives access to it. She understands that the goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become discerning. Love freely, but never use your pain as a chain. Give honestly, but never give from desperation. Be vulnerable, but never surrender your self-respect. When you can share your heart without using it to control someone's choice, you create space for something much healthier. A relationship where two people stay because they genuinely want to, not because either person feels trapped by the other's wounds. A wise woman understands that she does not need to constantly announce her standards to make them real. Her behavior speaks for her. Anyone can say, "I deserve respect," but the real test is what you do when someone repeatedly disrespects you. Your standards become powerful when your actions consistently match your words. You do not need to give long speeches about what you will and will not tolerate. You do not need to threaten someone with leaving every time they cross a boundary. Instead, calmly observe their behavior and decide what you are willing to accept in your life. If someone repeatedly speaks to you without respect, you can step away. If someone continually breaks promises, you can stop making excuses for them. If someone constantly brings chaos into your life, you can create distance. This is not about punishing people. It is about protecting your peace. A wise woman knows that boundaries are not weapons. They are instructions for how she chooses to participate in a relationship. You cannot control another person's behavior, but you can control how much access that behavior has to your life. Sometimes the strongest response is not an argument. It is consistency. You say no and you mean no. You communicate what you need and you pay attention to whether the other person respects it. You recognize when an apology is followed by genuine change and when it is followed by the same behavior again. You stop trying to convince someone to treat you properly. This is where self-respect becomes visible. Your standards should not exist only when things are easy. They should remain present when you are emotionally attached, lonely, or afraid of losing someone. Anyone can maintain boundaries when they have nothing to lose. The real strength appears when you care deeply but still refuse to abandon yourself. And remember, having standard does not mean expecting perfection. Everyone makes mistakes. Healthy relationships require patience, communication, and forgiveness. The difference is between an occasional mistake followed by accountability and a repeated pattern of behavior that continuously diminishes you. A wise woman learns to recognize that difference. She does not demand that everyone understand her boundaries. She does not need everyone to agree with her decisions. She simply knows what aligns with her values and acts accordingly. Your actions teach people how seriously you take your own standards. When you respect yourself consistently, you stop needing to convince others that you deserve respect. You simply live in a way that reflects it. A wise woman understands that loving someone should never require her to abandon herself. A relationship can become an important part of your life, but it should never become your entire identity. You are still an individual with your own dreams, values, friendships, interests, and direction. When you truly value yourself, you do not give up everything that makes you who you are simply to keep someone interested. You continue learning, you continue growing, you continue making plans for your future. You continue spending time with people who support you. You continue creating a life that feels meaningful, whether someone is standing beside you or not. This does not mean you should become distant or emotionally unavailable. It means you understand that healthy love is built between two complete individuals, not between two people who expect each other to fill every empty space. A wise woman does not make someone responsible for her happiness. She appreciates love without becoming dependent on it. She accepts affection without making it the source of her identity. She enjoys companionship without becoming afraid of being alone. And most importantly, she never believes that losing a relationship means losing herself. Sometimes people will become so afraid of losing someone that they slowly begin changing everything about themselves. They stop expressing their opinions. They abandon their interests. They tolerate behavior they once promised themselves they would never accept. They become someone else simply because they think that version will be easier to love. But love that requires you to disappear is not the kind of love you should chase. The right relationship gives you room to breathe. It allows you to become more yourself, not less. It encourages growth rather than demanding that you shrink. Protect the parts of yourself that existed before the relationship. Protect your peace. Protect your goals. Protect your time. Protect your values. And protect the quiet relationship you have with yourself. You do not have to reveal every thought to prove intimacy. You do not have to sacrifice every boundary to prove love. You do not have to give someone complete control over your emotions simply because you care about them. A wise woman understands that mystery is not manipulation. Independence is not rejection. Boundaries are not a lack of love. They are signs that you know yourself. When you can love someone deeply without abandoning yourself, you create a healthier kind of connection. You are no longer loving from desperation. You are loving from choice. And that changes everything. You stop asking, how can I make this person stay? Instead, you begin asking, does this relationship allow both of us to become better versions of ourselves? That is the mindset of a woman who knows her worth. She can love deeply. She can give generously. She can be vulnerable. But she never forgets herself in the process.